It started like any ordinary evening, except for the part where I really didn't want to go. David, my husband, was insistent. "Lisa, this is important," he said, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror. "Thompson will be there, and it's a good opportunity for me. I need you to come." I sighed, but didn't argue. David had been under a lot of pressure at work lately, constantly complaining about his boss, Mr. Thompson. According to David, Thompson was an impossible perfectionist, never satisfied with anything. But I had to admit, part of me was curious to meet the man who'd been making my husband's life miserable. "Fine," I said, dragging out the word. "But you owe me." "I'll owe you more if this goes well," he replied, grabbing his jacket. I put on the green dress he always liked, curled my hair, and added a bit more makeup than usual. If I was going to be dragged to one of these stuffy work events, I might as well look the part. When we arrived, the venue was exactly what I expected: dim lighting, background music that no one seemed to enjoy, and clusters of people standing awkwardly with drinks in hand. David squeezed my arm. "Just smile and be friendly, okay?" I nodded, forcing a smile as we walked in. The first hour wasn't terrible. I made small talk with his coworkers, listened to stories about office antics I didn't care about, and sipped on my second glass of wine. David seemed to relax a little, which made me feel better about being there. And then Mr. Thompson arrived. He wasn't anything like I'd pictured. I'd imagined an older, gruff man with a permanent scowl, but Thompson was sharp, charismatic, and surprisingly young, probably mid-40s. He had that natural confidence that made everyone in the room turn their heads when he walked in. "Lisa, this is my boss, Mr. Thompson," David said, his voice tight. "Call me Rick," Thompson said, shaking my hand. His grip was firm, his smile disarming. "And you must be the brains behind the operation." I laughed politely. "I try to keep him in line," I said, glancing at David. He gave me a look that said, "Not too much, okay?" Dinner was served, and we ended up sitting at Thompson's table, along with a few other coworkers. The conversation started light, vacation plans, holiday shopping, but it quickly shifted to football. David, a diehard Cowboys fan, couldn't resist jumping in. "The Cowboys have the best offense in the league," he said confidently. Thompson smirked. "The Eagles' defense would crush them." Cowboys fans are all talk. What started as friendly banter began to escalate. I could see the tension in David's jaw, the way his shoulders stiffened. He hated losing, even in casual debates. And that's when I made the mistake. "Well," I said, leaning forward with a grin, "if you spent as much time at home as you do defending the Cowboys, maybe you'd finally win something." The table fell silent. Thompson let out a loud laugh, slapping the table. "I like her," he said. "She's got guts." David didn't laugh. He didn't even look at me. He just stared at his plate, his jaw tight. I should have stopped there, but the wine had made me bolder than usual. "Honestly," I added with a smirk, "if you put that much effort into fixing the cable bill, we wouldn't argue about it every month." The silence was deafening this time. One of David's coworkers gave me a strained smile, the kind that said, "Wow, you really went there." Under the table, David's knee bumped mine, a clear signal to stop. But I ignored it. "Oh, come on," I said, laughing nervously. "You know I'm joking." David's voice was low, sharp. "You're doing too much, Lisa." The tension at the table was unbearable. For the rest of the meal, David barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was curt and cold. I tried to act like it didn't bother me, but deep down, I knew I'd crossed a line. After dinner, the group moved to the bar area, but David didn't ask if I wanted to stay. He grabbed his coat and said, "Let's go." "Bedtime already?" I joked, forcing a smile as I waved goodbye to the others. Nobody laughed. The car ride home was silent. David's grip on the steering wheel was tight, his knuckles white. I scrolled through my phone, pretending not to notice, but the tension was suffocating. When we pulled into the driveway, I tried to break the ice. "Are you really going to be mad about that?" "It was just a joke." David sat there for a moment, staring straight ahead. Then he turned to me, his eyes filled with frustration. "It's not the joke, Lisa. It's you." "I'm tired of this." He got out of the car and went inside, slamming the door behind him. I followed him, still defensive. Tired of what? Me? Because I made a joke. Upstairs, I found him packing a bag. What are you doing? I asked, crossing my arms. I need space, he said, his voice quiet but firm. For what? Over this? I laughed, trying to downplay it. You're being ridiculous. He zipped up the bag and looked at me, his eyes tired but steady. You never know when to stop, Lisa. That's the problem. And with that, he walked out. The first night, I told myself he'd cool off and come back. But days turned into weeks, and there was no word from him. My texts went unanswered. My calls went straight to voicemail. Then, one night, as I scrolled through Facebook, I saw it. A photo of David at a restaurant with a woman I didn't recognize. She was blonde, petite, and smiling at him like he was the only man in the world. The caption read, "So thankful for this guy, red heart." My heart dropped. I clicked on her profile, scrolling through photos of them together. They looked happy, happier than we'd been in years. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, but the truth hit me hard. David had moved on, and I was still sitting in the wreckage of what I'd done. For weeks, I went through the motions, pretending I was fine. I posted pictures on Instagram, went out with friends, and told myself I didn't need him. But late at night, in the quiet of our empty house, the regret consumed me. I replayed that moment at the dinner table over and over in my mind. The way David's face fell, the sharpness in his voice when he said, "You're doing too much." I had humiliated him in front of the one person he'd been trying to impress, and I hadn't even realized it. Months later, the divorce papers arrived. Holding them in my hands, I felt the weight of everything I'd lost. My pride, my stubbornness, it had cost me my marriage. David had found someone who respected him, who made him feel valued. And me? I was left with nothing but regret. I learned a hard lesson that day. Words of power, and once spoken, they can't be taken back.